Now that we have the full NHL breakdown of players that are available to the Seattle Kraken, we're going to be conducting our final mock draft for the upcoming 2021 NHL expansion draft. Who have I selected to be a part of the Seattle Kraken? We'll discuss that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're conducting our final mock draft exercise here for the Seattle Kraken. Now I'm recording this on Monday, July the 19th. Of course, the actual expansion draft is coming up in just over 48 hours from now on Wednesday, July the 21st. The Kraken will be handing in their selections to the NHL earlier on Wednesday. And of course, everything will be unveiled at the event taking place in televised later that evening. So we're going to now jump onto the computer. We're going to go onto the capfriendly.com NHL mock draft simulation tool that they have. It's a great tool. You can play around with building your roster, and then I'll show you my full team, and then I'm going to do some explaining as well on some players that I plan to keep, players that I plan to trade, and kind of show you how I envision the lineup looking here when we get to training camp and hopefully on opening night or at least early into next season, because some players are dealing with injuries which could obviously impact their immediate availability. So we'll jump onto there now and get started. All right, so as you can see, we're on the capfriendly.com website on the expansion draft tool they have here. It's an excellent tool. If you want to play around with a mock draft, this is certainly the best way to do it, in my opinion. So looking here at the Anaheim Ducks, this is all updated to as well with the the accurate list of players that were protected and available here. So Cap Friendly has done all that work for us. Now we just got to pick a team, make sure we're cap compliant, make sure we meet the number of forwards, defense, contracts. So just to keep everything in mind, we're taking 30 players. You have to select at least 14 forwards, 9 defense, 3 goalies. At least 20 players have to be under contract for next season. So you can pick some UFAs and RFAs in there as well. And of course, you have to be cap compliant with a minimum of 60% of the cap being spent. So let's get started. With the Anaheim Ducks, we're selecting a 25-year-old defenseman, Hayden Fleury, plays both sides, making $1.3 million. To me, it's the best option. You could take a veteran guy like an Adam Henrique, but to me, there's some other veteran, bigger contracts I find much more appealing than Henrique's. So we're going to take a defenseman here and go with Fleury. And I do predict here that the Kraken and Ron Francis go heavy on the D. As you can see, I selected 13 out of the 30 players here are defense and took the minimum forward. So let's go through and take a look. At the Arizona Coyotes level, we're taking Michael Bunting. So I'm going on the assumption here that we're going to negotiate with Bunting during this period where we can do that and get him signed. He's 25 years old. He had a bit of a breakout season. I guess you could probably call him a bit of a late bloomer here, but certainly making $737 before. I don't think you need to pay him a whole heck of a lot. If you can get him signed even for a couple of years at, a decent price, or I don't know, $1-2 couple $1 million or something, like he had a really good month where he was scoring a pile of goals, played for Canada at the World Championships, looked really good there. And I just think he's a younger player that is a prime example of what you saw in Vegas, a guy that just needs more opportunity. And I think he'll be a good fit, and you can play him anywhere in your middle six and be effective. You get a lot of speed there too. Moving on to Boston. Boston, we're going with Curtis Lazar. Now in Boston, there's some other options. You could go with a guy like Nick Ritchie. Nick Ritchie will probably get you a little more offense than Curtis Lazar will. But I went with Lazar for a couple of reasons. One, I see him as being a really good player for my fourth line. So there's that. And I did take a couple of contracts that were a little hefty. So I need to save money where I can. And really for what Lazar is getting paid compared to Ritchie, I'm going to save that almost $700,000. That's quite substantial. Whereas I see Ritchie maybe being a middle six winger, but there's lots of comparable options. But I like Lazar for the fourth line. So we went that route. They do have some defensemen like Clifton or Lausanne that could have been, a pick there too. But there's just so many other good D that I thought that was best here. So we're going with Lazar from the Buffalo Sabres. To be completely honest, and no disrespect to Buffalo and their fans, but there's nothing here that I liked. I'm not taking Jeff Skinner's $9 million cap hit. I mean, I will consider a couple of players in, the hefty contract category, but he's not one of them. I'm not taking Kyle Okposo. Cody Eakin's a possible selection. Like I considered that, but there's just nothing I really see fitting over the year or two span. So I went with William Borgen, 24-year-old RFA defenseman, probably plays in the minor league team or we flip him. But he's an inexpensive option on a team where there's just not a lot here that I really overly particularly care for. And there's a few other teams like that as well. Just, and it's not so much that the team is terrible. It's a combination of maybe not being a great team, but also just with the exemptions for younger players. They did a good job of protecting themselves. So it's not all, disrespect here. It's just a matter of who was able to protect what. Calgary, we're taking captain Mark Giordano. Yes, he makes $6.75 million, but it's only a 1-year contract that's left here. So if you end up retaining him after that, you're probably going to sign him for less money, which is great. He could be the first captain of the team. He's going to bring you the leadership, and he can still play and be a good minute logger. So to me, there's no better option here. I considered maybe the much younger Oliver Shillington, but if you look at the forward group, there's really nothing jumping out here. I'm not taking Lucic. A bunch of UFAs there that we'd have to negotiate with. Brett Ritchie's maybe. I would consider that, but there's lots of other players who can play that way too. So Giordano, it's a unique situation. If you're going to win and be competitive, you need to have some leadership, and you need to have some experience. And Gio can bring that along with some of the other vets here that I've picked up. On to Carolina. Carolina, we're doing Dougie Hamilton. Now, of course, he's going to be one of those players that we're selecting a negotiated contract with here. Obviously, he's a UFA needing a good substantial raise, and obviously that is going to be a big part of our cap situation here. So, of course, the RFAs and UFAs are not counting towards our cap here because they don't have a contract for next year. So, as you can see at the end here, I'll explain, because we're not keeping 30 players. So, you're going to take some guys for the purpose of trading. But there's some other good options on the Hurricanes, to be completely honest here. If you want to go different, you could take young defenseman Jake Bean. You could go with Nino Niederreiter, who was another tempting option. But I just really like the idea of getting Dougie Hamilton to play that right shot top pair defense. He could be paired with Mark Giordano. That's an excellent first pair for a brand new team. To build out as an expansion team, I want to build from the net out, get some really good blue line. The forward group you might think is a little weaker, but you know what? We're going to make some trades after, and we're going to go from there. But to be honest, you don't get too many opportunities to get a Dougie Hamilton. So I can't pass that up. With Chicago, we're taking defenseman Nikita Zadorov. Now, he's having apparently issues coming to terms with a deal with the Hawks, and it is rumored that they are shopping him around. So since he's available, I should say they were shopping him around till the freeze kicked in, and now he's available to the Kraken. So based on what else is available here, I could go with an Adam Gaudette, but we also seen that you need size and physicality to win in a playoff series. And he can bring that. I'm a little surprised that he's bounced around a little bit like he has. And that in fact, he's even here. They picked up Caleb Jones and protected him over Zadorov. And to me, if they're both available, I would still take Zadorov. So, the new contract might concern me a little bit. And depending on how negotiations go, maybe we don't keep him. But I really like what he brings. And I think he could help us win, assuming we can be a playoff team here early in our history. Now, on to the Avalanche. It's really, really tempting to get Gabriel Landeskog. But I didn't go that route because I can't take all these big ticket contracts and free agents and make it all work. And it's not that Seattle's not interested. They're rumored to be, really intrigued by that possibility of signing Landeskog. But there's also intrigued to be signing some other players or taking some big contracts. So we went with JT Compher in this regard. Compher is still going to be a good player who can probably get a bigger opportunity and be a good middle six guy for us on the wing. So to me, that's where I decided to go. I went with him over Donskoy because he's a little younger, a little bit cheaper as well. Not overly fond of the blue line options. I mean, I do like Eric Johnson to a degree, but he's been so injury prone that I'm not going to take that for that reason. There are some other players that, we use that rationale, and you might say, well, they're injury prone, but I guess the upside that comes with it to me is just too good to pass up. So we'll talk about that when we get there. On to Columbus. Now, another team that, for the most part, I didn't think was going to have a whole lot here that I was going to like, but I also didn't expect Max Domi to be there. So we're taking Max Domi. He's making $5.3 million on a 1-year contract that's remaining here. To me, he might not even be ready for the start of the season. So it's hard to say, but to me, but based on what else is available here, I like Domi, and I think we can make him a better player in Seattle, get him some good usage with some good wingers, and I think it could be a good fit. So even if he's not ready to start the season, I'm okay with that. But we're taking Domi because of the lack of better options here. On to Dallas. Now, I know some might say you take Ben Bishop, but for a guy who's barely played in 2 years with the other goalies that are available, we are not going to go there. We're going to take Tanner Kero. And again, like I said before, It's just because of lack of a better option. There's really not much here that I'm fond of, to be completely honest. I don't really want Blake Como. We could try to negotiate with Jamie Alexiak. If we could get the deal done there, that's about the only other thing I would consider in this regard. But it is rumored that he really wants to stay in Dallas, so negotiations may not go well. And, we may be at a loss. Plus, there's lots of other D here anyway. So we're going with Kiro, a player that may not even be on our roster. It's hard to say. In Detroit, we're taking Troy Stetcher, another guy when I've done mock drafts in the past. I did not expect to be here, but they picked up Nick Leddy from the Islanders, who they protected, and that's thus made Stetcher available here. So he's making 1.7 for another year. Right shot defenseman. Obviously he's from BC, not far from Vancouver. So this is kind of like a homecoming for him. So, as much of a homecoming as when he played for the Vancouver Canucks. So he's 27. And to me, he's an underrated guy. Like he's a good puck mover. Like, he's not going to be a huge superstar, but he's a good depth defenseman to have. And I like what he brings. So compared to what else's options are available with the Red Wings, to me, that's what I'm doing here. Now on to Edmonton, and I'm taking RFA Dominic Cahoon. Now, I didn't expect him to be available either. I thought they might go a little bit different. You could go with a Tyler Benson as well. But I personally like Cahoon. I think I like what he brings here. So Cahoon's going to probably play either on our third line, maybe be a trade chip. I'm not sure yet. But either way, he's a player that I'm fond of here based on what's available. On to Florida, we're signing Chris Driedger as a UFA. That's been heavily rumored, likely going to expect to take place here. He's looking for about $3 million. So to me, that's a good deal for him. And based on what else is there, now there are some rumors about the Panthers maybe sending Frankie Vetrano to Seattle as well. I'm not sure. We'll have to try to substantiate those and see if there's some kind of side deal being worked out. But we see what happened to Florida in the Vegas expansion draft. They gave away a lot. Look what happened. They gave Vegas a first line with Smith and Marchessault. So to me, I hope they learned their lesson here. Now, before we continue any further, I do need to pause for a moment and acknowledge one of our channel sponsors, Exter Smart Wallets. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Exter. Forbes calls Exter the most successful smart wallet brand in the world. They certainly have high-quality products, high-grade leather. You can put all your cards in your wallet with RFID protection, and you can track it worldwide. That's the best part. You don't have to worry about losing your wallet and not being able to track it down. They have a great selection of products to choose from here, a variety of colors and styles, something to surely help for everyone. As you can see in the demonstration here for the product I have, this is a beautiful packaging, high quality. When you open it up, you get a high quality wallet with lots of slots for your cards. You have yourself a money clip if you want to carry cash on you here as well. And certainly, as you can see, the quality is outstanding. And here you can see the switch where you can help open up your cards. You just one little click and boom, everything fans out right in front of you. Easy to access. Your cards are protected. And here's the back where you have yet another slot. A terrific overall product, and I can't recommend these enough. Exter ships worldwide, and you can check out the link down below in the description as well as the pinned comment to buy yours today. Thanks so much for watching that promotional video. Let's jump back into the mock draft. On to LA. LA's got some interesting options. I really thought long and hard about Jonathan Quick. But there's another goaltender you're going to see here shortly that we're going for instead in the veteran category. So to me, didn't make sense to take him. I thought long and hard about Athanasiou as well, but they have some defensemen here that I like between Clegg and Willanen. So we went with Clegg just because I think we can sign him a little bit cheaper. So saves a little bit of money early going. And I still like Cale Clegg's long-term potential here. Minnesota, another guy I didn't expect to be available, Kaapo Kähkönen. And you know what? There's some decent options. Otherwise, you could go with a guy, on the blue line, like a Carson Soucy. Not too bad of a contract. You're looking at the forward group. There's not much there. I'm not overly fond of Rask or Bukestad. So we're going to young goalie Kähkönen, who could possibly be the number 2, number 3 goaltender. Either way, he's a good guy to have in your system here under contract for a really good cap hit for another season. In Montreal, yes, I am taking Carey Price, and here's the rationale. We already know for Frank Saravalli that the Kraken are seriously considering this. And the reason for it is how many opportunities do you get to build your brand new franchise with an all-star goaltender that has the accomplishments on his resume that a Carey Price has, who's just coming off a phenomenal performance all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Like, that never happens, right? Now Vegas got Fleury, a little bit of a different scenario, similar age, a little bit more money. But still, Vegas has proven this year that having an awesome goaltending tandem, even though it costs a lot of money, is well worth it. So to me, Carey Price might have some injury issues, but you still have him under contract for a long time yet. I'm willing to wait. And if he goes on LTIR to start the season, then that's fine. That just makes a little bit more time for us to make some of these decisions on who else we're going to keep around. So, I mean, you could go with a Jonathan Drouin. You could try to sign a Philip Deneau. Those are all possibilities. I could take a Brett Kulak, but why would you do any of that when you can grab Carey Price? Like, I honestly think the odds, the more we hear from insiders about what Seattle's thinking, I think that there's a really good chance this is going to happen. Now, it may not. It's not a guarantee. But apparently, from what we're hearing, is that, they're really thinking long and hard about this, and ownership has given their blessing, even if it means that he has some injury concerns and he's going to miss part of the year. So that, to me, is leaning more so in the likelihood that they're going to do it. But we'll find out on Wednesday. In Nashville, we're taking 27-year-old left wing Nick Cousins, making 1.5 for another year. To be honest, not a ton of options here. That's really, great. I could have went with Calle Jarnkrok, making a little bit more money though. Same with Mark Borowiecki. The only reason I went with Cousins is just because I needed a little cheaper of a cap hit, and I really didn't dislike Cousins enough to spend the extra on the other guys. So to me, that's what made most sense here for the Predators. New Jersey, we're taking Will Butcher, 26-year-old left shot defenseman, making 3.7 for another year. I know he's kind of fallen out of favor there a little bit. We're not taking PK Subban at $9 million. I'm not taking Johnson at 3.4. I like Butcher enough that we'll take him. And you know what? I'm not completely sure he fits our roster, but maybe he's a player we trade, even if we have to retain a little bit or something. It's 1 year, or maybe he gets flipped at the deadline, depending on how our season's going or whatever. But I like Will Butcher enough to make that call. With the New York Islanders, you have to take Josh Bailey. I did not expect Josh Bailey to be available. He's a really solid player. He's quietly productive, quietly underrated, does a lot of things well for the Islanders. Excellent playoff performer as well. And given what else is available here, I think he's the best option. I'm going to take him over Eberle any day of the week, or Leo Komarov or anything like that. And I think at this point, the Islanders are willing to lose either Eberle or Bailey so they can keep Kyle Palmieri and go after another scorer, because they've already moved on from Leddy. They moved on from Ladd. If they lose one of these guys as well, the cap space just keeps adding up. Then they can keep Palmieri, they can keep Cizikas, and they can also try to add somebody else, which is what they want to do here. So I'm not really doing them a favor. I'm doing myself a favor and taking a really solid hockey player in Josh Bailey. New York Rangers, we're taking 23-year-old right winger Julian Gauthier, who I think with the right opportunity has that potential to be a really good, solid 20-goal guy on the wing. He's got good size, good speed. I've seen him play a lot when he was in junior, and he had a really solid, game at that point. And then, of course, he's been getting his time and dues paid in the minors, working his way up here. And I think the only reason he hasn't gotten more opportunity with the Rangers is just because they are a deep team and there's lots of other great prospects here. But you get him in a team that gets more opportunity, and I think he'll flourish. He could be a guy comparable to some of the guys we saw go to Vegas last expansion here and do the same thing. In Ottawa, I was tempted to grab a goalie, but after grabbing Carey Price and Kakinen and Dreger, it just didn't make sense. So I still want some more size and physicality on my blue line. So we went with 27-year-old right shot defenseman Josh Brown. So he plays the right side, which is, a bit of a premium here. He's only making $1.2 million for another year. Not afraid to drop the gloves, can play physical. You don't want to get him over his head, though, where he has to play too big of a role. But if you get him on your third pair, he can drop the gloves, play a physical game. And to me, he can have value. He may not even be a regular third pair guy. He might be more of like a 6-7 guy that doesn't play every day. And because when he was playing every day with the Senators in the beginning of the year, things weren't good. But as he had time to continue to work on his game and kind of go in and out of the lineup, he was a lot more effective. So I think he can do something similar for Seattle. With the Flyers, we're taking Robert Hagg, 26-year-old defenseman, making 1.6. I really wanted to grab Shane Gostisbehere, but because of the Price contract, it kind of handcuffed us a little bit, so we couldn't go with Ghost here. I had to cut some money in somewheres, and Hagg over Gostisbehere was the call. Now, there is a heavily rumored trade that's going to take place between the Seattle Kraken and the Flyers. There's rumored that the Flyers want them to select Tarasenko and maybe trade him to the Flyers for Voracek. So that's something that we might possibly see, and that's fine because I mean, obviously, you're going to get similar production. To be honest, if I'm Seattle, I would probably prefer Voracek anyways. He's been more productive, more consistent. As much as Philly could use a shakeup and maybe Voracek's due for a change, he's been a really productive guy. He really can't complain too much about his production. So if that trade goes down, I think that's advantage Seattle, in my opinion. Now, if Tarasenko can get back to being around close to a 40-goal guy, that's advantage Philly. So we'll see. Could be a good move for both sides. Pittsburgh, we're taking Zach Aston Reese. Now, some interesting names here, though, I will say. And I considered making some other moves, but with the Price contract and Tarasenko and some of these other players, it kind of handcuffs us a little bit, but still, we have the ability to still have a very, very good team. So instead of going with a guy like Tanev at 3.5, we're going with Aston Reese at $1 million. I'm not taking Pettersson at that contract. And really, too many good goalies to I'm passing on to Smith. Zucker, again, another guy. I like Zucker, but not at that contract. So we'll see. Zach Aston Reese is the pick. San Jose, we're going with Dylan Gambrell, 24-year-old center, just re-signed for $1.1 million. So to me, that's a good contract to take. They actually protected Burns, Carlson, and Vlasic. I'm surprised. I thought Burns would be available. I probably wouldn't have picked him, but really telling to show the contracts that San Jose's choosing to keep and what they're willing to expose here. But not a lot to really be overly excited about. With St. Louis, we're taking Tarasenko. Now, I really like Vince Dunn here, and maybe I try to make a deal with the Blues that they trade me Dunn for taking that off their hands, because they tried to trade Tarasenko and couldn't get a deal done. So that tells me that they clearly didn't have as much value as they thought. So I'm going to try to work that if I'm Ron Francis until I get both players. But like I said, if I'm willing to trade Tarasenko to Philly for Voracek after this is over. In Tampa, there's all kinds of great options here. I mean, it's been rumored forever to be Tyler Johnson, but when you have all these guys to pick from, no offense, but why would you take him when you can get a guy like Gord or Palat? I went with Yanni Gord because he's making a little bit less than Palat, is a year younger, obviously a little bit younger than Killorn too. I could go with Killorn if I want to save a little bit of money, but we get the longer-term deal. We saw how valuable he was as that third-line center in Tampa. And to me, you need that. That's an important piece. He comes with 2 Stanley Cups to his name. He's a guy who was undrafted, really good underdog story, works hard, and I have a lot of respect for him. So to me, is a good guy I want on my team. The Maple Leafs here, I know many thought for a long time Kerfoot was going to be the pick. The Maple Leafs went out and acquired Jared McCann, thinking that exact same thing. Because the Kraken apparently wanted both players. That if they would have been separated here like they were before this trade, that they probably would have grabbed Kerfoot from Toronto and McCann from Pittsburgh. But I'm not going to do that. You know what? I'm going to call their bluff here. I'm taking Travis Dermott. I need more defense. I'm taking the left shot 24-year-old defenseman making a lot less money. He's an RFA for another year, $874,000. Why wouldn't I do that? I mean, to be honest, I have enough other options here. The Maple Leafs can deal with their own cap problems. It's not my job to fix it unless they want to make a side deal where I get Dermott and one of these guys, and then I'll take both, and then I have more assets I can trade. But I'm not taking them without a deal because I like Travis Dermott. Kerfoot's a good center. But you know what? Like between him and Yanni Gord, like I don't really need both of those guys. They can both play a similar type of role. So we'll see. I'm doing that because I don't want to help their cap situation now. In Vancouver, I'm taking young forward Cole Lynn, 22 years old, RFA, looking for more of a bigger opportunity. Not a ton here that I'm overly fond of. I mean, maybe Holtby, but with Price in the mix, you don't need Holtby too. So we're going with Cole Lynn. Passing on Jake Virtanen since there's other options here. I know I've looked at Virtanen in the past, but to me, that's not the best route to go anymore. Washington, we're going with Brendan Dillon. Now, I previously had taken Vanacek, and I would still consider that. But I didn't expect to have Dillon here. I honestly thought that Schultz and Jensen would be the two exposed, but obviously Dillon's available here as well, 30 years old, under contract for a couple more years at 3.9. Good, solid physical defenseman back there. I like that option more so. And I have other goalies I can pick from. And then we've got Dylan DeMello from the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I really considered hard here about Mason Appleton, but again, I have enough forwards, and I like what DeMello brings. He's got a good contract for a few more years. Right shot defenseman, 28 years old. And that to me is just a real solid opportunity. So now let's go over here and take a look at the team. So In goal, we have Price, Kakkonen, and Dreger. So obviously my intention here is likely to go with Price and Dreger as the main two. If Price is on IR to start the season, we use Kakkonen. Otherwise, he's our number 3. On the blue line, like I said, you can probably have a first pair of like Giordano and Dougie Hamilton. Just for kicks, you might want to play Brendan Dillon and Dylan DeMello. So you got Dylan DeMello. Like that's just, yes, yeah, haha. I got a kick out of that, so I thought it would be funny just to see them play together. But you know what? I honestly feel they would make a good pair, especially if they're your number 3 pair. And then you can even consider a tandem like maybe Hayden Fleury and Nikita Zadorov, perhaps, or then maybe keep Josh Brown as your number 4, or you can throw Dermott in there instead of Fleury. Either way, I'm probably trading 3 or 4 of these guys, and like maybe Butcher, Stetcher. I'm not sure exactly who we keep, but I figure between the forwards that we got and the defensemen, I'm probably going to trade about at least $10 to $12 million of cap space out the door, and we can use some of that money to re-sign some players or make some additional trades as well. Because, like I said, Tarasenko might go for Voracek. Also here in the forward group, I don't know how many we're going to really trade in the forward group. There's not going to be as many based on how I drafted here, but still, like, look at the blue line. Your blue line and your goaltending is going to be excellent, and that's going to win you a lot of hockey games. And some of these defensemen that we trade, maybe we try to get a little extra scoring up front, but we're well within our cap space. We got our 3 goalies. We got 13 defensemen. We need at 9. We got our 14 forwards, which is met. We have at least 20 contracts, which is met. We're cap compliant. And there we have it. So that is my team for the Seattle Kraken. Obviously, like I said, there's bound to be tons of trades afterwards. So it's hard to say exactly how that lineup would go. But, for example, your top line, if you didn't make trades, could be like Domi, Tarasenko, and Josh Bailey or something like that. Maybe Yanni Gourde is your second line. And you could always go with Lazar to be your 4th line. Maybe, because you're going to have to make some other trades. You probably will want to trade for at least one more center here. Gambrell's another guy who could be a 4th line center. Maybe Lazar is your 3rd line center. Hard to say exactly how you shake it here, but still, to me, there's all kinds of good options. They're going to be a very competitive team here, no matter how we shake it, even if they do things differently than I have here today. But this is my team, and let me know what everybody thinks. So that is all 30 players that I'm selecting if I'm Ron Francis of the Seattle Kraken. As I mentioned, I explained here who I plan to keep, trades I plan to make, and I think we're going to have a really solid looking roster. We can build this team with solid goaltending, solid defense, and some pretty decent scoring as well. I do expect the Seattle Kraken to be a very competitive team from the get-go. Can they be as competitive as Vegas was in season 1? I think there's a decent chance, but we'll have to wait to be seen and see how their actual draft, to see how their actual selections compare to what I've done here today and what they're going to look like when we get to their first season. So let me know who you would select in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news and rumors in all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.